The paradox that's been hiding in your daily life. Let me tell you about the moment I realized I'd been imprisoned by my own attention. It was 3:47 a.m., and I was doing what I'd done every night for 6 months, checking my bank account balance on my phone, watching that number refuse to change. Each time I looked, I felt that familiar contraction in my chest, that whispered confirmation. See? Still the same. This is who you are. What I didn't know then, what nobody had told me, was that this very act of checking, this repetitive observation, saturated with fear and doubt, was the precise mechanism keeping that reality locked in place. The universe had been trying to tell us something through quantum physics for nearly a century, but we've been too busy treating it like an abstract curiosity rather than a user manual for consciousness itself. The Quantum Zeno Effect, first described in the 1970s, demonstrates something that should fundamentally change how you understand your life. When you continuously observe a quantum system, you prevent it from evolving. You freeze it. A radioactive atom that would naturally decay becomes stable when measured frequently enough. A particle that would transition between states gets stuck in its initial condition when attention holds it there. Now, here's where most people miss the revolutionary implication. You are not separate from the quantum field. Your consciousness doesn't just passively witness reality, it participates in the continuous act of reality's formation. And every moment you're checking whether you're still the person you don't want to be, you're collapsing the wave function of infinite possibility back into that one familiar outcome. You've been quantum freezing your own life. The observer who shapes what they see. Let's go deeper into what's actually happening beneath the surface of your awareness. In the quantum realm, particles exist in superposition, multiple potential states simultaneously, until the moment of observation collapses them into one definite state. The famous double-slit experiment showed us that the mere act of measurement changes the behavior of light itself. The observer and the observed are not separate. They're entangled in an intimate dance of mutual creation. Your life operates on the same principle, though at a level of complexity that makes it harder to see. Every time you check in on your reality, am I still single? Am I still unsuccessful? Do I still have this health condition? You're not neutrally assessing a fixed situation. You're performing a measurement that collapses probability into actuality. And if that measurement is performed from a state of fear, doubt, resignation, or desperate hoping, you're encoding those frequencies into the very observation that determines the outcome. Here's the mechanism. Your subconscious mind, which controls approximately 95% of your behavior and perception, is constantly scanning the environment for evidence that confirms your existing beliefs about yourself and the world. This is called confirmation bias in psychology, but it's much more powerful than that. It's not just selective attention, it's selective reality creation. When you wake up each morning and immediately fall into the feeling state of still stuck in my old life, your consciousness begins broadcasting that frequency into the quantum field. The field responds not to your wishes or affirmations or vision boards. It responds to your coherent emotional electromagnetic signature. And coherence here means alignment, when your thoughts, emotions, body chemistry, and subconscious beliefs are all singing the same song. Reality has no choice but to harmonize with that frequency. The Quantum Zeno Effect happens because frequent observation from the same state of consciousness acts as a continuous collapse mechanism. You look at your life with yesterday's eyes, yesterday's emotional signature, yesterday's nervous system activation pattern, and you get yesterday's reality reflected back to you again and again and again. Think of it like this. Imagine reality as a vast ocean of potential, with infinite waves of possibility moving through it. Your consciousness is like a tuning fork. Each time you observe your life, you strike that tuning fork, and the specific frequency it produces causes certain waves to amplify and crystallize into your experienced reality, while others fade away unmanifested. If you strike the same tuning fork of fear, lack, and unworthiness 100 times a day, you're going to keep amplifying the same reality wave, collapsing the quantum field into the same patterns. But here's what makes this simultaneously terrifying and exhilarating. The field doesn't care which frequency you broadcast. It's completely neutral. It will just as readily organize around joy, abundance, and possibility if that's the coherent state from which you observe. Why your best efforts keep failing. Now, let's talk about why so many people hear this information and still can't seem to change their reality. Because if it were as simple as just observe from a different state, everyone would already be doing it. The first reason is that most people are trying to change their observation while remaining the same person at the identity level. They're putting new thoughts on top of an old operating system. You cannot think your way into a new reality if your body is living in the emotional signature of the past. Your subconscious doesn't speak the language of words. It speaks the language of feeling. When you affirm, "I am abundant," while your nervous system is activated in survival mode, while your body chemistry is flooded with cortisol and adrenaline from stress, while your heart rate variability indicates incoherence, while your electromagnetic field is broadcasting the frequency of lack, the quantum field receives the mixed signal and returns more mixed results, or more commonly, no change at all, because the dominant signal is still the old one. This is why so many manifestation techniques fail. They're addressing the 5% conscious mind, while the 95% subconscious continues running the old programs. It's like trying to steer a ship by changing the flag on the mast, while the rudder remains locked in position. The second reason is the addiction to checking. We are neurologically wired to seek certainty, to reduce anxiety by confirming our understanding of reality. And in the modern world, this has become pathological. You check your phone 150 times a day. You check your email, your social media, your bank account, your dating apps, your weight, your appearance in the mirror, your partner's mood, your boss's approval. Each of these checks is an observation that collapses possibility. And if you're checking from anxiety, from a need to know, from fear that something might be wrong, you're quantum zenoing yourself into stagnation with every glance. The third reason, and this is the one that really keeps people stuck, is that your current identity feels safe. Even if you consciously hate your circumstances, there's a part of you that finds comfort in their familiarity. Your subconscious has built an entire infrastructure around this identity. Neural pathways, habitual thought patterns, social relationships, daily routines, even the way you hold tension in your body. To truly observe from a new state of being means to die as the old self. And your nervous system interprets that death as a literal survival threat. So, when you start to shift, when you begin to embody a new frequency, an alarm goes off in your ancient limbic brain. Warning, unknown territory. Return to familiar patterns immediately. This is why people self-sabotage right when breakthrough is near. It's not lack of willpower or bad luck. It's your system pulling you back to the known, even if the known is painful, because the unknown feels like annihilation to the ego identity structure. The fourth reason is energetic incoherence. Your heart, brain, and gut have electromagnetic fields that either amplify each other when in coherence or cancel each other out when in conflict. When your mind says, "I'm ready for love," but your heart holds walls from past wounds, when your conscious intention says, "I want success," but your gut carries shame about being visible, when you affirm abundance, but your body contracts in fear around money. These conflicting signals create electromagnetic noise, not a clear broadcast. The quantum field doesn't respond to noise. It responds to clear, coherent signals. And finally, most people are trying to manifest specific outcomes rather than embodying new states of being. They want the relationship, the money, the health, the success. But they're not willing to become the version of themselves for whom those things are natural, inevitable, already inherent in their frequency. The field doesn't deliver packages to your door. The field reorganizes itself around your state of being. When you truly become abundant in consciousness, not in pretense, not in affirmation, but in the felt sense of sufficiency and overflow, abundance in form follows as naturally as a shadow follows your body. The science of becoming. Let me share with you what actually happens in the transformation process, because understanding the mechanism removes the mysticism and makes this practical. Your brain operates through neural networks, pathways of neurons that fire together repeatedly until they wire together into automatic patterns. Every time you think the same thoughts, feel the same emotions, and perform the same behaviors, you strengthen these networks. This is how you become who you are, through repetition, creating neurological infrastructure. But here's what's extraordinary. Your brain doesn't know the difference between a real experience and a vividly imagined one. When you close your eyes and genuinely feel the emotions of your desired reality, not from wanting or needing, but from already having, your brain begins forming new neural pathways, as if that reality were already your lived experience. This is called mental rehearsal, and it's been proven in neuroscience to create measurable changes in brain structure. Professional athletes use it, surgeons use it, peak performers across every domain use it. But they're using it for specific skills. You can use it for identity transformation. When you spend time each day, ideally in the early morning when your brain waves are naturally in alpha and theta states, more suggestible and creative, sitting in the feeling of already being who you're becoming, your brain cannot tell that this is imagination. It begins pruning the neural networks of your old identity and building new ones aligned with this new state. But this only works if you can generate authentic emotion, not theatrical emotion, not performative feeling, but genuine, elevated emotion that comes from within. Joy, gratitude, awe, love, freedom. These high-frequency emotions have measurable electromagnetic signatures that extend 3 to 6 feet beyond your body. They literally change your field. Your heart, which generates an electromagnetic field 5,000 times stronger than your brain's, is the most powerful broadcaster in your system. When you activate heart coherence, when your heart rhythm becomes ordered and harmonious rather than chaotic and erratic, you enter a state where your entire physiology begins to optimize. Your immune system strengthens, your hormones balance. Your brain moves into heightened perception and creativity. And in this coherent state, your observation of reality changes. You're no longer looking at life through the filter of survival chemistry, through the lens of stress and fear. You're observing from elevated emotion, from possibility, from connection to something larger than your small self. This is when the Quantum Zeno Effect begins working in your favor. When you observe your life from this new state, not by checking anxiously to see if anything has changed, but by naturally perceiving through your new coherent frequency, you begin collapsing the quantum field into patterns that match this elevated state. Synchronicities appear, opportunities emerge. People respond to you differently because you're literally broadcasting a different electromagnetic signature. The right resources, relationships, and circumstances begin organizing themselves around your new frequency with uncanny precision. But you must maintain the state. This is the key that most people miss. The practice of coherent observation. So how do you actually do this? How do you stop quantum freezing your old life and start collapsing possibility into new forms? First, you must catch yourself in the act of the old observation. This requires developing witness consciousness, the part of you that can observe your own observing. Throughout your day, notice when you're about to check your reality from fear or doubt. Notice that impulse to look at your bank account with anxiety, to scroll through social media comparing yourself to others, to ask your partner for reassurance from a place of insecurity, to step on the scale with dread. In that moment before you check, pause. Take 3 deep breaths. Ask yourself, what state of being am I about to observe from? Am I about to perform a measurement from yesterday's consciousness or from the new identity I'm becoming? Second, establish a daily practice of becoming. This isn't meditation in the traditional sense of clearing your mind. This is active mental emotional rehearsal of your new identity. Sit quietly, close your eyes, and begin to feel, not visualize, but feel what it would be like to already be living as your transformed self. How does your body feel when you're abundant, when you're loved, when you're healthy, when you're free? What's your energy like? How do you walk through the world? What's your internal dialogue? What emotions are natural to you in this state? Spend 20-30 minutes fully inhabiting this future self. Let the emotions become so real that your body begins responding as if this is your current reality. When you open your eyes, maintain that feeling state as long as possible. When you catch yourself slipping back into the old emotional signature, gently return to the new one. Third, change your relationship with observation entirely. Instead of anxiously checking for evidence that you're still stuck, begin looking for evidence that you're already changing. The quantum field is always providing feedback, but we miss it because we're looking for dramatic shifts while ignoring subtle reorganizations. Did someone smile at you unexpectedly? Did an old limiting thought feel less true than before? Did you handle a trigger with more awareness? Did you feel a moment of peace where there used to be anxiety? These are signs that your frequency is shifting, that reality is beginning to respond to your new state. Celebrate these micro changes. Feel gratitude for them, because gratitude is one of the most powerful amplifying frequencies. When you appreciate small shifts, you generate elevated emotion around change itself, and this attracts more change. Fourth, understand that you must observe from the end. This is a concept that mystics have taught for thousands of years, but that quantum physics now explains. You cannot collapse possibility into form while maintaining the energy of waiting, hoping, needing, or trying. These states broadcast incompleteness, and the field organizes around that incompleteness by keeping you in a state of perpetual seeking. To observe from the end means to genuinely feel that what you desire is already accomplished in consciousness. Not pretending, not fake it till you make it, but actually resting in the completion of it. This is advanced practice because It requires surrendering the addiction to pursuit, to effort, to making things happen. When you observe from completion, from the feeling that it is done, you collapse the quantum wave function from a place of sufficiency rather than lack. And the field must reflect that sufficiency back to you because that's the information you're providing through your observation. Fifth, clean up your energy leaks. Every time you complain, gossip, criticize, or engage in lower frequency thoughts and conversations, you're broadcasting mixed signals. Every time you scroll mindlessly through content that makes you feel inadequate, every time you watch news that activates fear, every time you engage with people who reinforce your old identity, you're interrupting your coherence. This doesn't mean spiritual bypassing or pretending everything is fine. It means being discerning about where you place your attention, because attention is the mechanism through which you observe, and observation is the mechanism through which you create. Sixth, work with your body. Your body is not a vehicle carrying around your consciousness. Your body is part of your consciousness. Every cell carries memory. Every tissue holds emotion. If your body is stuck in patterns of contraction, protection, and survival activation, you cannot sustain elevated states of being no matter how much you mentally rehearse. This might mean breath work to shift your nervous system out of sympathetic fight or flight into parasympathetic rest and digest. It might mean movement practices that release stored trauma and stress. It might mean sound, touch, or somatic therapies that help your body let go of its addiction to familiar emotional states. When your body starts to embody the new frequency, when your posture changes, when your breathing deepens, when your muscular holding patterns release, when your heart rate variability increases, you've crossed a threshold. You're no longer just thinking about transformation. You're living it at the level where it actually matters, in the cellular, neurological, and energetic infrastructure of your being. Why this works when nothing else has. Now, I want to address something directly, because I know some of you are thinking, I've tried everything. I've done the affirmations, the visualizations, the manifestation techniques. Nothing works for me. Why would this be different? The difference is coherence and embodiment. Most manifestation teachings address the conscious mind only. They give you things to say and think. But quantum creation happens at the level of state, not thought. It happens at the level of who you're being, not what you're thinking about being. The Quantum Zeno Effect framework works because it addresses the actual mechanism of reality creation. Observation from a specific state of consciousness. It's not about adding new practices on top of your old self. It's about fundamental identity shift that happens when you stop quantum freezing your old self through constant anxious observation and instead begin observing from the already transformed state. This also works because it explains why you've been stuck. You haven't been failing at manifestation. You've been succeeding brilliantly at manifesting the continuation of your current reality through the Quantum Zeno Effect. You've been so good at observing from the same state that you've frozen your life in place. The moment you realize this, something shifts. Because now you see that you already have the power. You've been using it all along, just in the direction of perpetuation rather than transformation. And if you can freeze reality in place, you can also unfreeze it. You can allow new possibilities to emerge by changing the state from which you observe. Your reality is waiting in potential. Here's something that might blow your mind. The reality you desire already exists in the quantum field as potential. It's not something you have to create from nothing. It's something you have to allow to collapse into form through your coherent observation from the state that matches it. Every possible version of your life exists simultaneously in superposition. There's a timeline where you're healthy, abundant, loved, free, creative, and fulfilled. There's a timeline where you remain stuck. The question is not whether these potentials exist. They do. The question is which one you're going to collapse into actuality through the consistent state of being you're broadcasting. When you check your life from still stuck, you're observing, and therefore collapsing, the stuck timeline into continued existence. When you observe from already transformed, you begin collapsing the transformed timeline into manifestation. This is not wishful thinking. This is quantum mechanics applied to consciousness. The observer effect is real. Your observation matters. Your state while observing matters. And consistent observation from a new state rewrites reality. But here's what requires courage. You must be willing to stop confirming the old reality. You must be willing to stop checking whether you're still the old you. This feels terrifying because it requires living in the unknown, in the space between identities, in the quantum gap where anything is possible, but nothing is yet certain. Most people cannot tolerate this uncertainty. They rush back to the familiar observation, the familiar feeling, the familiar identity, and snap right back into the frozen reality they're trying to escape. The ones who transform are the ones who can sit in that quantum gap with faith, not blind faith, but informed faith, based on understanding how consciousness and reality interact. They can maintain the new state of being even before physical reality catches up. They can observe from the end even when the middle is still unclear. A question for you. Let me ask you something, and I want you to really feel into this question. If you knew with absolute certainty that your reality would reorganize around whatever state of being you consistently embody, if you trusted that quantum principle completely, what would you stop checking? What anxious observation would you release? What familiar emotional state would you finally let go of? And who would you start being right now, today, in this moment, even before you see evidence in your external circumstances? Because that's the person who's about to experience breakthrough, not the person waiting for permission from reality to feel different. The person who has the courage to feel different first, to observe from the new state first, to become coherent with their desired reality before that reality becomes visible. This is the quantum leap that the phrase quantum leap actually refers to, not a gradual progression, but a sudden jump from one state to another with no middle steps. You cannot climb your way from your current frequency to a new one. You must simply become it discontinuously through choice and practice and commitment to a new state of being. The invitation, I want to invite you into something here. Not a program, not a course, but a realization and a practice. The realization is this: you have been quantum freezing your reality through repetitive observation from the same state of consciousness. This is not your fault. Nobody taught you this, but now you know. And with that knowing comes responsibility, the ability to respond differently. The practice is this: for the next 30 days, commit to observing your life from your future self's state of being. Every morning, spend time becoming that self in your mind-body-heart coherence. Throughout the day, catch yourself before you check your reality from fear or doubt, and choose to observe from the new state instead. Before bed, review your day not from what's still wrong, but from what's already shifting. This is not a 30-day manifestation challenge where you expect specific outcomes by a deadline. This is a 30-day identity installation process. You're not trying to force reality to change. You're becoming the person for whom a different reality is natural. And I'll tell you what will happen if you do this with genuine commitment. Reality will start to respond. Not always in the ways you expect, not always in the timeline you prefer, but it will respond because it must. The quantum field has no choice but to organize around coherent observation. You'll notice synchronicities that make you laugh at their precision. You'll find yourself in conversations and situations that couldn't have been planned. Resources will appear. Obstacles that seemed immovable will shift. People will respond to you differently because you're broadcasting a different frequency. But more important than any external change, you'll feel different. You'll know at a cellular level that you're not the same person anymore. And that internal shift is the real transformation, because everything else flows from that. What to do right now? If this resonates with you, if something in you recognizes the truth of what I'm sharing, I want you to do something immediately, not later, not when you have more time, but right now, while the energy of this realization is alive in you. Close your eyes for a moment. Take 3 deep breaths and ask yourself, what's the single most repetitive observation I make from fear or lack? What's the thing I check most often from yesterday's state of consciousness? Got it? Good. That's your entry point. For the next week, every time you're about to perform that observation, before you check your bank account, before you look in the mirror with criticism, before you scroll through social media with comparison, before you ask for reassurance from insecurity, pause. Take 3 breaths and ask, who am I about to be in this moment, the old me or the new me? Then choose. Choose to observe from the state of already being who you're becoming, or at least from neutrality rather than fear. You won't always succeed. That's fine. The practice is in catching yourself, in bringing awareness to the pattern, in slowly reprogramming the mechanism through which you collapse reality. And I want you to leave a comment below with one word, just one word that represents the state of being you're choosing to embody. Not what you want to manifest, not your goal or desire, but the identity you're stepping into. Are you becoming peaceful, abundant, courageous, free, creative, magnetic? Share that word. Let it be a declaration, a public commitment, a way of anchoring this realization in something beyond just consuming content. When you write it, you're performing an observation from that new state. You're collapsing possibility into a specific direction through the act of declaring. The community of conscious creators. You're not alone in this work. There are thousands of people around the world who are waking up to these principles, who are actively practicing reality creation through state management rather than external manipulation. When you subscribe to this channel, you're not just getting more content, you're joining a field of coherence, a community of people all raising their frequency together. And there's a quantum principle at work in that too. When multiple observers enter into coherent states together, their electromagnetic fields interact and amplify each other. This is called collective coherence, and it's been measured in studies of group meditation and synchronized heart rhythms. When we practice together, even across distance, we strengthen each other's ability to maintain elevated states. So subscribe, turn on notifications, engage with others in the comments. Share your word, your commitment, your experiences as reality begins to shift. Support each other, celebrate each other's breakthroughs, hold space for each other in those difficult moments when the old identity fights to return. This is how we change the world, not through external activism alone, but through internal transformation that ripples outward into the quantum field, affecting everything and everyone we interact with. The truth about transformation. I want to end with something important, something that will save you from the trap of spiritual materialism and toxic positivity. Transformation is not a one-time event. It's not something you achieve and then you're done. It's a continuous practice of remembering, returning, choosing, and becoming. You will forget. You will slip back into old observations. You will catch yourself checking from fear, contracting into familiar emotions, broadcasting the old frequency. This is not failure. This is the process. Every time you notice you've slipped and consciously choose to return to the new state, you're building the neural pathways and energetic coherence that eventually make the new state natural. You're literally rewiring yourself through repetition. Be patient with yourself. Be compassionate. This work requires the warrior's strength to keep choosing and the sage's wisdom to accept the pace of organic unfolding. Your reality will reshape according to your inner coherence. But inner coherence is built through practice, through falling and returning, through forgetting and remembering, through the daily choice to observe from who you're becoming rather than who you've been. And here's the beautiful truth. The moment you truly understand that you've been quantum freezing your reality through repetitive observation from the same state, in that moment of understanding, the freeze begins to thaw. Awareness itself is the first step toward transformation because you cannot change what you cannot see. You've seen it now. You know the mechanism. You understand that your observation is not neutral, that your state of consciousness, while observing, determines what collapses from potential into form. So the question is no longer whether this is possible. The question is, will you practice? Will you commit to observing from your future self's state of being, even before you see evidence? Will you have the courage to stop checking your reality from the old identity and start collapsing new possibilities through coherent observation? Because that's where your power lives, not in controlling external circumstances, not in forcing or manipulating or hustling your way into a different life, but in becoming so coherent with the reality you desire that the quantum field has no choice but to reflect it back to you. Your reality is not fixed. It never was. It's been fluid all along, continuously collapsing from infinite potential into specific form through the mechanism of conscious observation. You've been using this mechanism brilliantly to perpetuate the familiar. Now you get to use it intentionally to create the new. The quantum field is listening. It's always listening, not to your words, but to your state, not to your thoughts, but to your coherence, not to your hoping, but to your being. So be. Be the one who's already transformed. Be the frequency of your desired reality. Be so coherent with your future that it has no choice but to become your present. And watch, not from anxiety, but from fascinated curiosity, as reality reorganizes itself around your new state of being. This is not magic. This is mechanics, quantum mechanics applied to consciousness. And you, my friend, are the observer, the creator, the one collapsing infinite possibility into lived experience with every moment of your awareness. Use that power wisely. Use it consciously. Use it to become who you came here to be. I'll see you in the next video, where we'll go even deeper into the practical techniques for maintaining coherent states and navigating the identity death that comes with genuine transformation. Until then, remember, you're not stuck. You've never been stuck. You've been quantum freezing yourself through repetitive observation from the same state. And now that you know, everything changes. Drop your word below, subscribe, and let's collapse some new realities together. The quantum field is waiting for your coherent observation.